strength. It's not just about lifting bars. It resides within every unique journey. This is To The Bar, strength in every story. We're a community, a platform where stories meet strength. Our podcast is the result of our passion for weightlifting. From the first lift to the last, we're here to bring you the latest weightlifting news, to unravel the intricacies of the sport that will make you want to grab a barbell and hit the platform. This is To The Bar, strength in every story. And now for today's show.
Right, that's good. Great, lovely. All right, welcome to The Bar. So I'm Jess Roebuck-Saini.
And I'm Aaron Holt.
And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Club Cup, which is a new endeavour from British Weightlifting. And so to talk to us about that, we've got two of the head coaches of the clubs that are currently part of the Cup. We've got Przemek Borak from Hampshire Barbell.
Thank you for the invitation.
All right, and Henry Woodason from Guildford Weightlifting.
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting us down. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great to see you both. I guess the kick-off really is BWL have been sort of plastering this about recently about introducing this Club Cup, and I've purposely not looked up anything about this, so I'm keen to understand what it's all about and how I guess clubs like Atticus here and other clubs can hopefully jump on the bandwagon and join in on that.
Henry.
Over to you, Henry.
Yeah, so Przemek approached me end of sometime of last year. We were talking about doing some sort of inter-club competitions and just kind of a bit more competitions for our members, bit of sort of inter-club socialisation, spending time, interact between the clubs, and then Przemek spoke to British Weightlifting, and this sort of then grew into a sort of more an attempt to make a standardised kind of Club Cup, because we'd had inter-club competitions in the past and it's all sort of fell aside, and then COVID and everything, it just kind of nothing happened with it, and now we're kind of back, and this is kind of our test run to see kind of how it works, whether it runs, and then obviously be able to spread this out more nationally. Just drive some participation for newer members, masters, people who are maybe a bit worried about doing a full competition. So try and make things a little simpler. One referee, no singlets, try and get everything through a bit quicker, so people don't have to come down. Obviously, local meets are quite fast, but sometimes early weigh-ins, you end up being there all day by the time you lift in a later group or something. So just trying to have a kind of lower barrier to entry to get people competing. Matt from British Weightlifting was then very interested in this as it kind of spread to British Weightlifting, because he said to me he'd been looking for a way of getting more people competing and more people actually sort of using their membership and being involved rather than just doing weightlifting but not being part of British Weightlifting, not being part of the competition side of things. So yeah, kind of gone from there.
Yeah, I think that sounds great, especially the inclusion. I think what we've seen as TOs, it's easy. Well, I say easy. It's often a bit difficult as coaches trying to get people to compete. But once you do, it's getting them through the door on the competition platform. But then how do you keep them coming back? And I guess this is one of the ways to do that.
So from my understanding then, because I have also tried not to look at it too much, you've got eight clubs that are taking part in this trial?
Currently six.
Six
Clubs took part of the first round.
So you've got 4 rounds, 6 clubs.
Yes, and it is each team consists of 6 lifters, 3 male, 3 female. Mm-hmm. They need to be age 18 from 18, mm-hmm. 18 plus. Up to basically masters. So we're planning to do in the future similar format for youth lifters. So
is that more as a separate competition? Or
yes,
separate
as a separate club cup youth.
Yeah.
We can figure out the name.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. When we had Matt on, he was talking about the difference between sports. So when you think about if you've got a kid and your kid plays football or they play rugby, they pay subs, right? And they go and they pay £2.50 a Saturday to play in a match or whatever. Whereas weightlifting's quite expensive for parents if you think entering a competition is 45 quid now, 40 quid depending on where you're going. Yeah. So the idea of having like a league or a cup where it might cost a little bit less for the juniors and they're able to actually compete more regularly sounds really good. But if we're then thinking back to this one, so you've done one trial, is that right? We've had one round already. How did that go?
And you can say because we hosted
Was-
that competition,
I was gonna say,
so maybe it will be easier to make judgment, about the competition.
I think it ran really well. It was a really fun day. Everyone had a great time. We sent the full teams to 6 lifters, some who'd never really competed before, some who'd had some time off for competition, and I think it really helped like those that had competed before but just hadn't for a while. It was an easy win to be able to persuade them to do it compared to full comps. They really enjoyed it, and it kind of made them understand again why they liked competing and kind of want to do it again. And it was a really fun day, especially considering it's the first one. Pretty much run no problems, no mishaps. The whole day ran really well, so that was a big win. That the first one, obviously, we're all sort of a little bit nervous. It's a new system, but it ran really well, smooth throughout the day. Really good atmosphere because sort of all the clubs, although you could turn up at different times, pretty much everyone turned up in the morning and was there all day.
Sure.
So like all our lifters were there for the whole thing. So it was a good atmosphere.
Also, also it's good to mention that if you want to take part, you don't need. If you are a lifter, and you don't need to be British Weightlifting member.
That's really good.
You need to train at the club. You need to be part member of the club, but you don't need to be British Weightlifting member. British Weightlifting cover insurance for all those lifters who are not British Weightlifting members. So
That's
I
great.
think
It's a
it
great
is
way.
helpful.
Again, lowering that bar of entry to competition where,
Yeah, that's the thing. We've had a few people sign up for the British Open in August, but it's their first comp, so they've got to pay comp entry fee, but they've also got to pay their yearly. And it's not that much for a year, but when you have to do both one after the other immediately for the first comp, suddenly you're sort of doubling or over doubling the cost of the first competition. Now, once they're obviously involved and have a membership and it just goes out as a yearly sub, they probably don't notice. But when you have to buy both together, if it's your first comp, so it's a good way of getting people in without having that big sort of upfront cost. Also, we have a lot of people who just, I don't know, I love wearing singlets, but like people have this thing about wearing, people have this thing about wearing singlets and like things, and it's odd. Especially some of the CrossFitters, they're all happy in their shorts and they've got their tops off, or they're in shorts with some sports bra, but for some reason they can't wear a singlet, and it just seems quite odd. But that is one of the things that it seems to. And again, it's another expense if you've got to go out and buy a singlet because you don't own one to do your first comp. So there are those things as well, and definitely it was a much easier sell to people from our club who were sort of on the fence about competing compared to signing up to a full comp and doing that.
Yeah. So then thinking about it as a full league, so you've got the 4 rounds and each club brings 6 lifters to each round. How are you scoring, or how are you deciding who wins the cup in the end?
We use SMF points to calculate, overall place.
Okay.
Reason why we use Sinclair and Malzer-Faber coefficient to make sure that we treat everyone equal. I'm talking about masters. So it's reason why we used that sort of points,
Awesome. So it just sort of totals up each round, and then at the end it's whichever club has got the most points.
Yes.
That's nice and fun.
I think it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it, when you do it that way. We were talking about a comp that we ref down in, it was the Lift Me Up comp for Emily.
Devon.
And a little girl of 7 years old won the whole competition because of the Sinclair points. And I think it levels the playing field. I think it's a great idea. And again, making it available to everyone.
I think that's a big thing. It just lets everyone involved, and people feel like they're not. There's no pressure that they're letting the team down by this or that, because it doesn't matter what sort of level you're at or whether you're a masters lifter or this thing. We also went with out of the 6, the top 4 score, because we found there's a little less pressure. Because obviously, if you've got a team of 6 and one person bombs, it can be a huge negative effect on the team score. Or if a team's only able to submit 5 lifters to one of the leagues, that could be it. It doesn't. So that way we can make sure that it sort of keeps a little bit of that competitiveness going, and also reduces the pressure on people competing. I think in the first league, one of the clubs was only able to bring 4 lifters. So if we score all 6, that would be for the league. They're never going to make up that deficit. So it just allows it to be a bit more, again, lower barrier to entry. You can make sure it's actually competitive, because for any reason someone pulls out last minute, you're still going to be able to put a valid score up from 5 lifters, because only the top 4, top 2 male, top 2 female score.
Life gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it? So
Yeah, that's really good. So one of the other things we've talked about a lot on the podcast when we've had other guests on between ourselves is sort of the jump really between being a club lifter and just training every day in your local club and then going to a comp. And if you're not sort of British Championship sort of level, you're kind of stuck with just doing the tier 3 comps, right? There's not really much for us in between those two. So is the idea that this could maybe develop into being something to bridge that gap?
So this is what we were discussing, as Przemek said, we're kind of looking at a separate youth comp. There is the discussion, obviously. We actually went out to the Bundesliga, a load of us from Guildford, and it's fantastic, but I think we don't really have the kind of the facilities or the infrastructure. All the clubs in Germany have built-in seating, places to host these massive comps. Like, it's not something that a lot of clubs have. And at the moment, the kind of focus of the Club Cup is this introduction, getting people in for lifting and stuff like that. Now there are discussions of, do we turn this into something, or do we look at a separate competition that's more about who's got the best club, send your best lifters, try and make it as competitive as possible. But obviously that doesn't go very well with this is meant to be a low barrier to entry, getting people introduced to competition. If you turn up being like, oh, this is fun, I'll get involved in weightlifting, and the other team's brought 3 British champions down to compete.
What I was going to ask is, I mean, what's to stop a club turning up with, Henry Campbell or
So we've kind of gone on just no set rules, but kind of at the moment just an understanding that you're good faith that we're not meant to be bringing your absolute best team. Now, if it just happens that you need a lifter and one of your national lifters is going, it's not the end of the world, and that's kind of how we've run it at the moment. We might obviously discuss formalising this into 2 separate competitions, like this is for the new lifters, this is for who's the best club in the country. But for this test at the moment, we've kind of gone on good faith that this is more about just seeing the spread of your club, not just have you got 3 good lifters who are going to win you the competition.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned about Bundesliga. Also, as we speak about the pilot event, we try to test in a small area, so just few clubs, and figure out what is the best solution, which direction we will go in the future. So I think the first 4 round it will be really, really important to learn a lesson, what is good, what we need to change. And yes, I heard about it. More people mention about Bundesliga. Why we don't do this way? I really would like to see the same format what is in Germany, but please remember we are in UK. We have our rules. I would be pleased to see that people coming from different country and they competing at British League. And right now in this situation that lifters from UK, they travel to Germany and they compete in Germany. So maybe it's time to change. Maybe we need to start something new, something different.
Yeah.
So touching on that, so we've just had a friend come over now, a guy called Marius who lifts in the Bundesliga. And the interesting thing was he was saying that he's off season now. And obviously, sort of as you were sort of saying there, the Bundesliga is a step above, and that's the pinnacle of what we could potentially get to. But the UK doesn't have anything like that. We don't have the infrastructure, as you said, with seating and that sort of side of things. But also, our competitions just run throughout the year. Is there an idea to try and sort of season it, be a bit more compact with Club Cup? And maybe sort of get a bit more of a format, do you think? Or is that something you would both like to see?
I think, again, because we're in such a trial stage with this first one, we just wanted to get something started and kind of see how it is. And then our main goal is, we've got some rough ideas of where we want it to go, but more we kind of just want to see what it produces. Then we can sit down as the coaches of the clubs, with Hannah, with Matt, and discuss what went well, what went wrong, what do we want to try, and just kind of build on it. I think there's no way we can go from what we have now to the Bundesliga just because we decided that's what we want. It needs to build a bit more naturally. And Przemek was saying, lifters coming from other countries. I mean, we turned up there, thousands of people watching the Bundesliga. Carlos is setting unofficial world records. You had Nico Muller, Max, Rick Vars, Solfrid going for an unofficial world record as well. Just to get that from what we have this year, it's such a big jump. So I think it's more we might want to have something like that, but there's got to be some more stepping stones. And for us, as long as it's improving every year and moving in the right direction, that's more what's going to happen, right?
I'm really excited for the idea of maybe getting something, just even if it's just regional, north v south. You know, it's you know, you're talking about there being steps. I think that's the exciting bit, is the idea that we could have layers to this, because like we said, there's a big jump, isn't there, between what we do currently and going to the British Championship. So having those layers of regional competitions or areas to your leagues, I think is the fun bit.
Yeah, actually what I would like to say, because I try to involve British weightlifting, club lifting with idea in 2018. I sent to British weightlifting in 2018 draft how we could run club league in UK. Unfortunately, no one responded from British weightlifting, but finally, 2022, Matt, I approached Matt and I mentioned, you know, about club league and
BWL 2.0.
yeah, and we start rolling balls. So So big thank you to Matt, and also we need to remember about Hannah from British weightlifting for her help. Awesome work.
Yeah, I think you know, we've obviously seen a big shift in direction with since Matt sort of taking over the reins, really, and it is nice to sort of see that change and the investment in things like this, and the partnerships with Virgin and well, you know, we've got the British coming up soon. You know, that sort of strength in depth.
Yeah, strength in depth.
Yeah, strength in
depth.
Yeah, really changing the face of it, isn't it? Really.
So. Definitely. There was must have been 2015, 2016, that we had a club league that Giles Greenwood had sort of organised, and it was nothing to do with British weightlifting, and it was all just organised independently through the clubs. And really fun. And the following year, it tried to be involved with British weightlifting, and it just crashed and never reappeared again as soon as British weightlifting. So a big shift from that to now, as you said, Matt, straight away. Yeah, that sounds good. I'll put Hannah on it. We'll try and get involved. And they've been really helpful with it and building that. Whereas, previously had this independent run thing, and then same thing. And you saw, talking about the stepping stones, Keith Morgan did a really good job with his London South East series, leading to a London South East final. And it gave this stepping stone. But at that point, the English totals were so low. I think at one point Keith ended up making the London South East totals higher than the English qualifying totals in an effort to force British weightlifting to push the totals up at the English. But that was really good because it gave people something to train towards. You turned up to the league matches with the intention of trying to get to the final, and then from that to the English to the British. And I thought it's good. So there's definitely been some independent attempts to fill that gap, and I think now under Matt, British weightlifting are actually getting involved with filling that, because we have a lot of lifters who get stuck in that no man's land. They can't quite qualify for a seniors, or they're making it but they're not making it in the rankings, but they don't want to just keep competing in their own club at the same competitions. And I think that's where people sometimes get a bit fed up and give up, because the English seems too far away, but then they kind of just don't want to do the same thing every week, right?
I think that sort of goes back into what you were saying about what's to stop clubs from bringing in ringers or you know, bringing in the best lifters, and you know why, you know, as the sort of the one that's, you know, already sort of qualified for the British, you know, why would you take a spot at you know, another comp for a junior lifter or some, you know someone else, when they know that that's actually helping the club progress. So yeah.
I think that's actually something as well, because obviously we've sort of gone on the good faith that people won't, but also none of the club league matches get you on the rankings, and you can't qualify for anything else for it. So obviously if you're putting all your effort into qualifying for the British, people tend to avoid that because it's just another comp they've got to peak for that doesn't sort of gain them any ranking or placement. So obviously on that side of it, again, it's good for encouraging those lifters who aren't worried about their ranking, aren't worried about qualifying for comps. Whereas obviously if you're doing this extra comp and it's affecting your chance of qualifying for the British, you might end up avoiding it as a result.
All of a sudden your training blocks going all over the place just because you're trying to fit in these other...
Awesome. So you've got another 3 rounds to go, and then I remember reading very briefly that the idea is that it will be rolled out nationally, you know, sort of at the end of that. How, I mean, I know you've said that you're going to have to sit down and sort of evaluate it as coaches, but how do you envisage that happening? As in one national league or sort of area regional based leagues?
I think opinions are divided. We have different views, and it's reason why we run this pilot. To make sure that everyone can say all thoughts about how people want to see Club Cup. Personally, I would like to see the best club, to create, as a national, to the best club in UK. But I think not everyone agree with me.
It's good that people have different opinions.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, as long as we're all on the same page with what we're doing, and obviously I think the goal with rolling out nationally might be to run a kind of 2-tiered system to it. So this is, or out of your 6 lifters, 2 are there to just be introductory and the other 4 are there to be the best club. And you can't have at least 2 of your lifters can't be nationally ranked or something like that. And I think the main one, because we're trying to keep that barrier to entry low, is probably run like a regional league that leads to a national league. Because obviously if you're Hampshire Barbell and you get called to a competition against Newcastle, like it's not necessarily that easy to persuade people to drive, stay overnight, that sort of stuff. So operating within the region, so maybe having a southeast, southwest, Midlands, north, northeast, and then a north-south, and then eventually a national final. Because obviously by the time you get to the national final, people are probably more likely to willing to travel to a competition venue, stay. But the idea of this being quick, simple competitions, and then you're involving overnight stays and long travel, it's not quite the same. So I think we'll probably go with some sort of regional that then leads to a national final, rather than it necessarily just being everyone's competing against everyone every other week and trying to organise venues, and who travels where is going to be quite tough if we do that otherwise.
It sounds so good though. I really like the idea of it.
I think it's great because obviously you got the chance, one club might not be looking to win the nationals, but they can get to their regional final. That could be their goal, and then another team's looking to obviously win nationally, and then or kind of move. And then obviously if you look at I know it's been tried before, but again seems to have fallen flat, was a club ranking system, and and looking at the end of the year which club has come out the top or that, because running it off of local comps and nationals is sort of seems to have failed to work. But obviously if it's just purely run off of this club league system, you can then have a number 1 ranked club at the end of this.
It's a bit more measurable, isn't it?
And I'm just thinking for us, like with Atticus, obviously brand new club, minimal members at the minute, within a CrossFit gym, trying to get people to even come to competition, to watch competition with us, is hard work, isn't it? Something like a regional league, I can imagine, CrossFitters are quite competitive, you actually getting people in and wanting to try things that way. So it sort of works across the board, doesn't it? For long established clubs, being able to compete against one another, but also for your new clubs to be able to find something to introduce lifters to competition with.
I'll be looking forward to the regionals where south beats north.
No, north will always win, I'm afraid. The north will always win.
So we need to change. We need to change this, and we need to win.
Oh, the sound. All right. You guys stay on that side. So, obviously we've talked quite a lot about the Club Cup, and it sounds really awesome. And a lot of the other guests that we've had on, we've talked about BWL 2.0 and all these changes that Matt's bringing in, and the advancement really of weightlifting within the UK. And I just wanted to know from the two of you if there was anything else that you would change, or anything you'd like to see in the future other than your Club Cup in terms of development within British weightlifting.
Oh, well,
big question.
Do we have a couple more hours?
Unlimited funds. What would you change?
Personally, I would say definitely right now it's good direction under Matthew lead. So definitely well done, Matt. What I would like to see, what kind of improvement I would like to see, better communication with British weightlifting. So it's not only me, but there is a lot of members try to send emails to British weightlifting, asking, sometimes yes, simple questions, but because they don't know where they can ask, so it's obvious for them to contact British weightlifting, and sometimes the response is after really long time. So sometimes you need to wait a couple of weeks to respond. So definitely, I would like to point the communication need to be okay. It will be great to see improvement. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll sort of mirror what Przemek said. Definitely, massively moving in the right direction. Everything's getting better. Matt definitely seems to be, having been a lifter himself, I think his understanding of, he talks a lot about like lifters first and things like that, and understanding more about like we've got to bias what the lifters want, not necessarily what's financially good. Now you need a financially stable, British weightlifting has to survive and make enough money to pay its staff and competitions, but focusing on the lifter's experience and lifter driven rather than just how to make it function, which is what I feel British weightlifting was before. It was just surviving, right? I think in terms of progression, we talked a bit about like just formalizing some things, have a competition calendar in advance, which I know they're trying to do, and I know it's difficult organizing big venues and things, but just turn up. So when you're writing training programs for people, like we already know in advance what these dates are, know this competition, I know I've got to qualify by this point, and then obviously placing things like our club competitions, the club league, because sometimes you turn up and you're like, I'm going to have to do 4 competitions in a really small space of time because I need to qualify for this, qualify for that. Yeah. And you can't find a comp that fits to you to qualify you to everything in one bracket. That'd be good. And then obviously it's quite a touchy subject, but British Masters and British Weightlifting running separately is one of those things that clashes with that. The fact that you seem to have multiple British Masters competitions, half the Masters are going to one, half to the other. Interaction with international masters and things is obviously something with that, but just sort of more formalization, try and get everything lined up, just make it easier for clubs to pick competition dates, plan their programming, stuff like that would be great. And then continued with this support for initiatives. It's great that Przemek has been able to bring the club leagues of British weightlifting and something has actually happened out of it, and I think that's some continuation of that will be great. And British weightlifting seems to be really good on the building the education side, their new courses and things that are coming out. Definitely seems to be an improvement of where to go and things to do. So I think that continuation of that would be good.
Yeah, I definitely fancy doing one of those strength and conditioning courses. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But you mentioned as well about I guess pre-mat, but British weightlifting just surviving. And it's interesting, so anyone that's a BWL member, we jumped on the call when they had the AGM, and when you listen to, because it is, Matt does his sort of annual review, there's the finance guy. When they showed the history of weightlifting or BWL before Matt sort of came in, it was in a dire state, it really was. So it's incredible, and as a member to sit there and see that stark reading, on the graph, seeing it underneath the red line, it was worrying. It's their cash reserves. I say cash reserves. We're not talking about the Bearings Bank here, millions in the bank or anything like that, but enough to weather a COVID storm.
Yeah. So that's someone said to me the other day about being complex signing up for a comp on Sport 80, and I did chat to Matt about in that. But I said I remember posting checks and handwritten entries to Keith Morgan. And it would say like email address, and the box was the size of the word email, and you're trying to like scribble your email into it and stuff, and then having to post it off to Keith with a check in there to get a place in a competition. And so I think the thing is, some of the newer lifters don't quite remember how dark the days of British weightlifting were 10 years ago, and it's definitely very different now, and it's definitely improved, and it's finding that balance, right? Appreciate the fact that weightlifting has come a long way under Matt, but also, we can't really rest on our laurels, and there's still definitely progress to be made. Every so often I think back to previous times of stuff with British weightlifting, and, saying about communication, I'd never heard anything 5-6 years at a club of British Weightlifting Club and didn't ever get a single word, email, update, anything from British Weightlifting. And, now Matt's got his newsletters and things, and definitely can still be improved, but from 10 years ago, it's worlds apart.
Yeah, I remember I uploaded on British Weightlifting my level 2, once I passed level 2 certificate, and I remember even now it was pending approval, information, pending approval. And guys, it took 3 years and 6 months until someone's
Click the button. Wow.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
the stark thing that I took away from that AGM was actually the budget in terms of how much funding they have. So I think whenever we talk about changes or anything we want to see from BWL, I always think about the sort of member responsibility there as well. When you think about actually how little we pay for membership compared to other sports, really sort of for all of us to remember where that goes back into. If we want these big competitions at the British, or we want them to look how we want them to look, there is a responsibility on us as well to keep the sport moving forward, I think, when it's not funded as well as other sports, I suppose.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I think you meant. We were talking about cost of entries and stuff like that, and the cost of entries for local comps has gone up exponentially, but British Weightlifting has been taking the same amount despite the fact those entry costs have been going up for competitions, and I think they have or are moving it up slightly what they take from the clubs for that. But I think that's within perfect reason for them to do it. Like, everything's more expensive. Running my gym, everything I do, everyone's costs. And, gyms have been pushing up the price of competition entries, and none of that extra money is going to British Weightlifting until this quite small increase. And in the grand scheme of things, like, they're not taking a huge amount of money. For anyone, the monthly memberships are, yearly membership is it's not really that high.
It did make me laugh when the post came out and I saw the monthly membership, sort of yearly membership is going up, and I thought, not looking forward at swiping, and it was like, I don't know, a couple of quid.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, they've
Happy
kept those
days,
monies
so,
down, and it's a big thing that they run. And I think there's been no one enjoys doing the safeguarding courses or doing this and doing the admin of making sure your DBS is up to date. But I think people forget it's not necessarily just British Weightlifting driving this. It's if they have to uphold certain standards to receive their funding, that's the money that gets paid, because it has to line up with Sport England and UK Sport. And I think that's the thing you said, it was your members' responsibility, coaches' responsibility, that realise, the UK funding stops. No one's getting paid at British Weightlifting, or we're all going to have to pay more in membership if they're not getting funding from UK Sport. So
maybe in that case it will be great to ask Matt, British Weightlifting, to explain why we do this.
Yep.
It is reason maybe people don't understand, and it will be good, to tell people why we need to.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of those conversations recently, particularly about safeguarding, in terms of people finding it challenging that they want to do it and not really understanding. And I think, as I work in the NHS, so it's really easy for me to understand why everybody that might come into contact with somebody under the age of 18 should do a safeguarding course. But I can see what you mean in terms of there perhaps not being all that much information about why we do the safeguarding course, or how that ties into funding, or what the bigger picture is there.
So it will be great, to explain, to make, maybe put idea which direction we go, strategy for next 4 years, let's say, almost Olympic Games 2024. So we will start preparing for Los Angeles 2028. So maybe it will be good to see strategy, where we going, why we need to do this or that way.
Yeah, so a bit more transparency in terms of the whys. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yep.
I like that. Lovely. All right. So we've talked quite a lot about British weightlifting.
So actually more than.
And now I'm going to talk about you guys as individuals.
Oh no!
Spotlight on you guys.
Spotlight on you guys. Yeah. So Przemek, how did you get into weightlifting? What's your origin story?
Oh well, it was long time ago. I started as an 8 years old boy. Actually, I started because my dad was Olympic weightlifter. And actually, as a little boy, I play on I have heavy toys, so I play at the gym. Also, I have two brothers, so actually all of us, we spend evenings playing, at the gym, lifting, dumbbells. And it was reason why, because dad, train Olympic weightlifting, so we actually my brothers and I, we started Olympic weightlifting. Definitely at age 8 it was just general exercises, practicing with PVC pipe, no heavy weights, and Yeah, so I practiced technique around 4 years. So when I was around 12 years old, I started, increasing slowly weights. And yeah, I started competing when I was 15. Yes, when I was 15, I won silver medal at Polish Championship, Youth Championship. And at that competition, I competed at 464, I think it was bodyweight at that time, bodyweight category, and I snatched 95 and clean and jerk 115. Yes, but it was a long time ago. and actually after that time, still I trained, but it was nothing, nothing special. And when I was 19, I decided to give up with Olympic weightlifting because I finished school. I wanted to go to uni, then uni work, and it was reason why no money. So you basically, even now it's difficult to do this for living. So I give up with Olympic weightlifting. I start uni, go to work. And then I came to UK, and in 2014 I started looking for a club in UK. It was really difficult to find, club at that time because you struggle, to find. Now you have, club finder. So if you're looking for affiliated club, it is quite easy to find. At that time it was difficult, and actually I founded CrossFit Solent. And my journey with Olympic weightlifting in UK started from CrossFit Solent. I tried a little bit CrossFit, but it wasn't for me. I tried to continue with Olympic weightlifting, but I felt it's not the same like when I was younger. So I decide, or maybe not decide, I think it was more natural that people start coming to me and asking for advice, how they can improve technique, because they could see me how I live, how I train. So they asked me for advices, and actually from that point it was like idea in my hand. Oh, maybe I will start coaching, and I started my journey, as a coach in UK. And in 2017, my colleague Joe McManus and I, we established Hampshire Barbell Club. Actually, at that time it was Fairham Barbell Club, and we started, slowly with just few members, and actually now I can say it's good direction. It's good direction. We growing, so it's good direction. Yeah.
Go on.
So that was your first comp, wasn't it?
Hampshire, yeah. First place I ever competed was at Hampshire.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So definitely you will be remembered.
Yeah. And it's nice seeing your club, because you started as a club in a CrossFit gym like us, with Ascus, right?
Yes.
And now obviously you've got your own venue, and it's nice to see that development.
Yeah.
I personally, I think that the biggest problem in UK, the prices for properties, when you want to rent is huge.
Through the roof.
Yeah. And I think the best is start, within CrossFit box.
Yeah.
If they have a little space, you can start from that point. Sometimes, maybe it is possible, to let's say sublet a little space from CrossFit and then start from that point.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what the difference is that you see. I mean, obviously we sort of talked about it or you mentioned there that when you were looking for a club, when you first sort of came to the UK, it was pretty difficult. What, coming from Poland, I mean, is there quite a big, so I'm sort of getting around to, so I think, Henry, you probably know when we had the Europeans Masters a couple of years ago in
Russian, in Poland,
yeah. And I think they must have wheeled out a few of the old retirees, and they came out, and you've got such a legacy of lifters there. Some really good sort of strength and depth of some of these old guys there. So you must have quite a big infrastructure of weightlifting clubs in Poland, or not so much now, or?
Well, it is tricky question. Now it is getting difficult in Poland because of lack of medals at European and World Championship. I'm talking about seniors now.
Yeah.
Also no qualification for Olympic Games in Paris male team. It is big disappointment. A lot of people want to make changes. We have just one qualification at the female team. So now it's getting, you know, harder, but yes, I need to say, you know, I can compare Polish weightlifting and British weightlifting. There's two different worlds. In Poland, you have a lot of resorts where you can train, and those resorts are subsidized by government. So also clubs, if you would like to start Olympic weightlifting journey, you can just need to find club and you can train for free. You don't need to pay. So it's paid by government. So it's, I think it's huge help, and it's something what we cannot compare. For me, when I needed to pay for CrossFit, you know, membership, it was like, okay.
Bit of a shock.
Yes, but of course I understand different that, you know, I live in UK, I'm not living in Poland now, so I understand different. But definitely it's bigger support from Polish government, and as I said, we have a lot of centers where you can, is new equipment, really good, you know, quality, where you can train. So definitely it's better support from government. And if we could have similar, you know, if you can come to club and you can train for free, I think it could be huge support.
The door's open to everyone then, doesn't it?
Also at national level, you can expect that you will be able to earn money. So top lifters in Poland, of course, you know, we're not talking about huge money, but it is, let's say, it is enough to do this for a living. And it's something what I can see that different between Polish weightlifting and British weightlifting. As I said at the beginning, we need to remember we live in UK. It's different reality. So
it's interesting because there was a post recently about, I can't remember who it was, that sort of mentioned about you know, some of the lifters, the pro lifters that have obviously been on the juice, but if you took away the fact that they train hard and they're you know,
Jordan Sackers.
Was it? Yeah. And I guess the argument was that I think someone was saying along the lines of they've got nothing else to fall back on, or, you know, this is the pinnacle, so, you know, for them this is the Premier League, and, you know, this is where the money is at. But at the same time, I think when you make it truly accessible to people, then, you know, they are going to be training, you know, day in, day out. It's not just the fact that they're on.
If only our government would fund gyms.
Yeah, well, I always remember after the when was the Olympics here? 2012, wasn't it? And Greg Rutherford, the long jumper, who got gold, and then he finished that. After that, then the government just cut his funding. It's like, but he's just won gold. You know, now keep him, you know, give him some longevity in the sport and keep funding him for the next one. But no, that was that. It just seems strange. Yeah.
Well, that's British Weightlifting got their funding cut for the men because they didn't achieve a top 8, I think. Yeah. But like Peter Kilbride with all the retroactive drugs tests is like 4th or 5th now or something like that in the 94s. So.
That definitely it is different world, you know. Especially recently, I have contact with people from Poland, and I can see, you know, what's going on, and I think they don't realize how good, in what kind of good position they are compared to different countries. You know, the tricky part, you know, it's funny. They say, okay, maybe it's not funny. They saying, you know, actually we start, you know, checking what British weightlifting is doing, you know, because level, Polish lifters level going down, and in UK is going up.
Yeah.
And it's simple question, where is Poland now compared to, let's say, Norway, Finland, Italy, France? There is more and more, in the past. Did you hear about, lifters, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago from Norway? Of course, I'm not saying that, but it's more and more, and now it's direction. So
maybe we can hope for a little bit of a shift. If your club cup takes off and we get a league and we get loads of people into weightlifting, maybe our government will start to fund gyms and we can have a bit of a swap that way.
Shining the light on the sport, isn't it, really? And the more we can do that, like things like this, then a lot.
Yeah.
So these small changes that sort of stack, don't they?
Yeah.
Lovely. All right.
So then, Henry,
Your turn.
your turn. I guess the same sort of question. How did you fall into weightlifting? Have you always been a weightlifter, or?
No. So I started off rugby. Like, that's one of the things you talk about a lot in this country. Like, you play rugby or you play football if you're a boy, and you play hockey or you play netball if you're a girl, and that's kind of it. And then in the summer, maybe cricket or athletics or something like that. But that was it. Rugby was my sport, and that's all I played. About sort of 15, I got introduced sort of to the lifts, but like, that horrible hang power clean, like high pulls, like just terrible technique. As long as the weight goes up, great, move on, tick that box. As long as it's fast and heavy, that's all we need. And that kind of got me interested in weightlifting, sort of about 15. Dating myself a little bit, I was looking in the yellow pages, like, trying to find clubs. Like Przemek said, no club finder. Really early days of, internet, no one's really got proper websites. Couldn't find anything. Looked again a few years later, eventually found Woking Weightlifting Club. Tried to get in touch with Brian, and, Brian's done a lot for weightlifting, but answering emails or his phone was something he couldn't do. After about 6 months of trying, I just gave up. And, that would have been me involved in weightlifting at 14, 15 years old in this country, but because of the lack of infrastructure, set up clubs in this country. Przemek was just saying, in Poland, you turn up and train at a club for free. I'm trying to pay money and still can't find somewhere to, train at that point. So that kind of got put to the wayside. Carried on playing rugby, doing lifting for that, but not really weightlifting. The plan was join the army, and then I tore a huge nerve section in my shoulder and lost all feeling in my arm for 3 months, and got told I couldn't pass the medical for the army. Had 6 months of not really knowing what to do with my life after 20 years of planning on joining the army, and then decided I'd go into coaching because I'd been coaching rugby, and start working as a personal trainer, work with a lot of rugby clients, start getting involved with a bit more lifting, and that was kind of first looking in. Did my weightlifting level 1 with Kazim, who anyone who's been involved in weightlifting for a while will know him. And then in 2012 I opened CrossFit Guildford and Guildford Weightlifting Club. And I've been running those gyms since. Started lifting more. No CrossFit, switched over to just full-time weightlifting. And it was the first real thing, sort of CrossFit and weightlifting were the first things I found that replaced rugby. Despite all my ending my army career before it even started, I still went back to playing rugby after that. And it's that thing. And it was the first thing I found that replaced that and gave me that focus and made me not want to play rugby and keep breaking myself. Ironically, had I found weightlifting at 14, I think I'd have been a much better weightlifter than I was rugby player. I competed then, English nationals, pretty much made the British total, and then COVID, everything else like that. Picked up some injuries and sort of slowly building back. Compete European and World Masters, competing next week in European Masters, and then Worlds later. Hopefully get back to British and English seniors again, post injuries, building back up. So that's that. And kind of been coaching and doing weightlifting since. But that was a big part of wanting to be involved with the Club Cup and building this, is the fact that looking back, my sporting career would have been very different if I'd have been able to find a club to train at 14 and do weightlifting. I was very lucky that Chris Murray's older brother trained at my CrossFit gym. And he said, I think you should look at my brother. He tried to do a clean and jerk because he'd seen me do one, and he did 80 kilos at 15 years old with no one teaching him how to do it in his school gym. And I said, thanks very much. I would definitely like him to come down. And within, I think 3 months he'd clean jerked 100 kilos,
Wow.
like 15 years old, and just obviously I was very lucky to have Chris come in, but it was nice for me to be able to give someone like Chris someone to train who was in that same position, who wanted to try weightlifting and find that sport at that age, and obviously has gone on to do exceptionally well, help out with British Weightlifting, Commonwealth Games gold and stuff, and it's just nice. I don't think I'd have ever won the Commonwealth Games, but it was still nice to have had the chance to, give lifters the chance to start at that age, give them a place to train. And kind of same as Przemek said, I think CrossFit's been a huge part of increasing club count, because if I just ran a weightlifting club, I probably wouldn't be able to afford it to be my full-time job. As an add-on to my CrossFit gym, it does really well, pays for itself, everything else like that. And a lot of our members come find CrossFit and then find weightlifting as a result. It's the gateway drug to weightlifting, right?
I was going to say, because I think what we've obviously seen an increase in take-up in weightlifting recently, and it's a loaded question because I think we all probably pretty much know what the answer is. But what do you think the increase is sort of stems from? The popularity that now we're seeing that influx of people coming in now.
I think there's been a general change in everything. I definitely think two sides of it. There's CrossFit, there's just more places to lift, more people being exposed to weightlifting and actually getting a chance to try it. You're seeing it though, a modernisation in sports. You've suddenly got football players doing power cleans.
Yeah.
I think Matt said there was a video of Victoria Beckham doing some power cleans or something like that. It's just
I don't know whether I want to see that.
Yeah. People like Jess Ennis coming to the forefront and suddenly seeing females weight training and a drive of more athletes, I think is that general increase of people, huge growth in powerlifting, especially on the female side. I think when I was at uni, if you'd have asked a female if they wanted to do powerlifting or weightlifting, they'd probably look at you like you just spat in their face.
Yeah.
Surrey Uni has 90% female lifters. Their weightlifting and powerlifting club, something like that. So a huge sort of cultural change around aesthetics, training, developing athletes, and then obviously the other side of that, CrossFit being exposing people to the lifts. I think there's something to be said for when you've tried to do a snatch yourself and then you realise that the person with the heaviest deadlift in your gym is the weight that person's now snatching on TV. It gives you a bit more kind of understanding of the sport. Whereas I think there's something to be said for your perception of how heavy it is. As much as someone can say, oh, that's 200 kilos, like a lot of people can't get their head round.
Yeah.
Whereas strongman does a very good job of people being like, oh my God, is pulling a plane or is picking up a bit light. And it kind of like, whereas that neatly loaded barbell, when you've got someone who's a lovely, efficient lifter, it doesn't necessarily look that hard. And then when Trummans tried to overhead squat an empty barbell, they suddenly get a bit more of appreciation for it, right? So I think CrossFit has done a lot for that side of it.
Yeah, definitely agree with Henry.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a question about a singlet?
Yes, we're roping back. You mentioned the singlet earlier, and big fans of singlets, of course. So we saw you at the English last year, sporting a rather fetching singlet, and that. So I mean, that was obviously Matt trains at Guildford Weightlifting, and he dusted down his old Commonwealth. Was it a Commonwealth singlet?
Yeah, so
the old Team Aussie.
He had his original sort of like cotton legless singlet that he had from as a youth, and he also brought down, which on the wall in the club, you can just about see the Olympic rings on it. He was an alternate in the Olympic, but because he didn't actually go, he got told to scratch off the Olympic rings on the singlet, so you can sort of see the scratched off Olympic rings from where he was the alternate on the team. Matt jokes that is the almost, because I think he was the alternate for the Commonwealth Games, alternate for the Olympics, and sort of almost everything. But yeah, Matt brought down a lot of his old memorabilia, and I can't really remember how it came up, but I made a comment to Matt that I'd wear the singlet if I didn't make the senior total. I was coming back from injury and just started lifting. I'd made the masters total, and I said, if I don't make the seniors, I'll wear it. Shoot me, I'd make it, and then I missed the last clean and jerk that I needed to make it, and ended up going to the senior masters instead. But I think the comment someone made to me was, you can take the boy out of rugby, but you can't take the rugby out of the boy, when I walked out with that on. But yeah,
it was appreciated.
Can't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
I'd been on the marshals table all day, and I just remember looking up and seeing you taking your clothes off and having that singlet on, and that made the day for me.
Matt came up to me just before I was about to go out and said, by the way, I've moved the whole media team off the senior platform to come over and take photos. And I was like, oh, thanks, Matt. Much appreciated. Although it did mean I had to make my opening lift. You can't walk out in that singlet and then miss, can you?
No.
But I think it did sum up how much social media is a bit odd. I'm pretty sure the video of me snatching 116, not particularly good snatch compared to my best or generally, got more likes than Ramiro's 150 snatch did, just because of the fact I was wearing that singlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social media.
Novelty. Anything for the novelty.
I think I have somewhere in Poland, you know, a singlet, old
Yeah.
singlets, and like some. Probably next time I will bring from Poland. So.
Yeah,
that would be
bring it
great.
over, yeah.
Well, there's a guy who lifts in the Masters, and he comes to Bethnal Green.
And
I can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
But
I think most of us know.
yeah,
know what you're
but
talking about,
it's a very revealing,
Yes.
old,
Yeah.
stringy type singlet.
Yeah.
But it's always a pleasure watching him lift. But sometimes.
And also, did you see his shoes?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, really, because they're sort of boot type ones as well, aren't they? So,
Yeah.
very old. And
You definitely get a few at the Masters where you look and you think, I'm pretty sure that's the same singlet you were wearing when you were 20
Yeah.
and you're now 80 and you definitely, it's like not fitting quite how it should anymore. But like, it's great. I also laugh, I feel quite false sometimes at my mum lifts. She's taken medals at Europeans and Worlds for Masters.
Wow.
But when I'm there coaching her and everyone else is 70, 80, 90 years old, and then I turn around and say, oh yeah, I'm a Masters lifter as well at 36. I do feel a bit, I'm closer in age to an under 18 than I am to the people that, lifting at that end of the Masters. So, but it's great to see them all turn up and just loving weightlifting still. And I always think to myself, like, yeah, that's going to be me. I'm going to crawl out on the platform at 90 years old and still somehow to manage to make some lifts, right?
Yeah, I enjoy the British and the English and stuff, but British Masters, seeing when we get there on that first day and they're all 70 plus, that's the thing that I look at, and I don't know, I could watch that all day.
Yeah.
It's
The David Mannion's, the Trish.
David Mannion is fantastic to
David
watch.
Mannion's something. I watch his YouTube videos just for the joy of them.
Oh yeah,
The joy of watching
that's
him train.
he's got some old school videos of him in his singlet teaching the snatch, clean and jerk on YouTube from one of my friend's CrossFit gyms in Canterbury, and it's like a 1,000 square foot. It used to be a refrigerator unit, I think, like that they stripped out with the CrossFit gym in, like proper old school. It's great. Like,
But yeah, I love that. I love watching the older women turning up and still flinging a barbell over their head.
Yeah.
And I think, that's going to be me.
yeah, one of the members bought me a T-shirt that says "My mum lifts more than you," which I quite like rolling out every so often. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, great that you're competing at, or sort of trying to get back onto the seniors side as well. And I mean, just the stress on the body must, at that level.
I got up to 135 in the snatch before I subluxed my kneecap. The fun of carrying old rugby injuries, but if I want to snatch 145, which is the goal, I've probably got another 4 years to do it. So got to get a move on a bit. But you've got Charlie Stone. David Steele, quite a few of those Masters lifters in that 35 to 40 category still producing some big performances. I'm pretty sure Charlie just hit his first snatch and clean and jerk PB for like 6 years or 5 years or something the other day in training, so he's looking good for the British, and I think so. They're definitely in that younger end of the Masters. There are some lifters producing. There's actually a guy in the Europeans in the 109s with a 350 entry total.
Wow.
And I asked Matt if I had that, and he was like, yep, you'd be on the senior starting team for GB if you had a 350 total at 109, right? Like, there aren't that many British lifters producing that. Like,
Wow.
Yeah, and also more female CrossFitters start competing as a Masters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely level going up.
Yeah, we see that. You see that a lot, don't you? I think even the difference between this year's Masters and last year's, the CrossFitters coming in, I think there was a lot more at the Masters.
Even when you start, I don't know, did you check or not, but when you start analyzing, results every year, let's say last 10 years, you will take and you will start analyze results, so level going up.
Yeah.
Every year, the results going up.
And I think the interesting thing is that it's not just at the Masters that you hear and so and so's coming out for a new record, or but it's at the juniors as well. So you know, as you said sort of previously, British weightlifting is definitely going in the right direction.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing you see a lot. Like, look at Olivia Reeves in America saying, you know, my parents owned a CrossFit gym and that's how I started weightlifting. Matty Rogers, Kate, all of them quit their other sports, CrossFit.
Yeah.
May have only been for a month, but it still opened the door for them moving to weightlifting. Yeah. And I remember when I first was involved with British weightlifting and I ran a CrossFit gym, it's almost like I had to hide that I ran a CrossFit gym, because some of the old school weightlifters were very anti CrossFit gyms, didn't feel like CrossFitters deserved to be competing in competitions. And now, again, you know, Chris, I was very lucky to coach Chris, and, you know, Chris straight from the start was going to be good regardless of who coached him. It's not because he was coached by me, but he had the option to start weightlifting because I own a CrossFit gym. Because if I didn't have a CrossFit gym, I wouldn't have my weightlifting club. And then he'd have just never found weightlifting, never started it, and we wouldn't have a Commonwealth Games gold medal. So there is definitely something to be said for more places. It's the same. I go on holiday, look around. If you can't find a weightlifting club, message a CrossFit gym, ask if we can have a little corner to get my training done. And most of them are pretty good at accommodating lifters as well. And just in the past, if you're traveling, you'd never find somewhere to weighlift unless you specifically chose your holiday round where you can do weightlifting, right?
Because those hotel gyms are dire, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because that sort of relates back to your point about there being more women in weightlifting in general, and this shift in aesthetics from women wanting to be the smallest version of themselves to actually being able to be sort of strong and fit. And that crosses over then to master's age and that middle age, and women finding CrossFit gyms because it's so much more relatable, I think. So. Yeah, it's just,
I think there's also something to be said. You're saying about the stress on the body of trying to lift at the seniors. I think obviously there's a point for, if you start weightlifting at a young age, there's a point at which you realise your lifts will never go up again. They're just going to go down. Whereas, you know, my mum has increased her PBs as she's got older because of the fact that she started weightlifting in her 60s.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've lifted from a youth, like, it's 60, you're never going to lift more than you did when you were in your 20s, right? But I think there is something to be said for those older CrossFitters coming in. They still see progression because the sport's new to them, and then they get excited and they want to stay with the sport. Lifting as a master's who's lifted all the way from a youth, you psychologically have to get round the fact that you're never going to PB ever again, unless it's, I've made this weight at an older age or something like that, right?
Yeah, readjust that mentality, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, we've sort of gone all the way around. I'm going to bring us back to the Club Cup and just ask, when is the next round?
Next round is 21st July at Lakeside Weightlifting Club.
That's the second one, isn't it?
Yes, the second one. Yes,
and then
the third one.
Third one's 22nd of September is the date we've got penciled in. That's going to be at Guildford, and then
the last one,
Craig Spicer from
Crazy Strength.
So I think they're looking October. I think some of that's going to line up when the qualifying window is for the English and things like that, because again, suddenly you put it on that last weekend that everyone needs to qualify for the English and everyone's running comps everywhere and splitting your coaches about and stuff. So I think that one will depend on when the qualifying window for English is, but sometime in sort of October, November.
Awesome. So I think we're probably going to come down to the one in Lakeside and
if you don't mind.
Maybe do a little bit of filming on location.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah,
it will be great to see you guys.
A microphone there. But so for anybody that's listening then, they can maybe look out for some more info on the Club Cup and get a little bit excited for next year, maybe being able to be a part of one.
Yeah, we're definitely, each round we're sort of, we had the first round and reviewed and looked at what changes we should make, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll have finalised some details, got a kind of simpler system set up and know what we're doing for next year. And I think that's the big thing. It's just we need to run more comps of this. We need to have more years under our belt of doing it, and that's what's going to progress it, right? The fact that we have it off the ground, it's running is that first step, right?
Yeah.
We can sit and talk about it and postulate about how we're going to build our Bundesliga for as long, but you just need to get started at some point.
And at the end of the day, nothing happens. So basically, it is good that we started.
Take that first step.
Yeah, is there a league table or a sort of chart where we can sort of see where the standings?
Yes, it is.
Well, we're going to put out all the standings, so we'll put announcements out as we're kind of going through, and obviously our look is, sort of round winners, so who's run that round, and then obviously a continued added the rounds together, and how we're going to progress through. So obviously you've got an idea of who's doing well on that round, you know, whatever, whose teams turn up that day, who makes that big PB on that day versus who consistently is producing those performances as a club over the 4 competitions, right?
Great, awesome. So we can share that on our social medias as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have an update after the next round with who won the round 2 and who's now where after round 1 and 2.
Yeah. Are we going as neutrals, or do we pick a team?
Whichever team is the most northerly, I am going to be supporting. I know you're all southeast.
If you look up the statistics of Southeast has produced more of the Olympians over the last X number of years than any other region.
Enough.
Losers.
I'm going to do my best to be neutral.
All right.
We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing it in person and seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Too.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and for telling us about the Club Cup and telling everybody that's going to listen about the Club Cup. Hopefully we can get people to support you guys and move forward,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no,
thank you.
Thanks
Again,
very much for
thank
having
you.
us. Yeah, I think you guys should get some praise for sort of promoting weightlifting as well and things like that.
Cheers.
Not just this, but I see you guys at every comp I seem to ever attend, right? They're there as well, right? And I think that's a big part of it is that volunteer side, you know, because these comps don't run without, you know, you guys turning up and volunteering your time for competitions and things like that as well. So, but yeah, thanks very much for having both of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
Happy days.
Done.
Guys, question.
You've been listening to the Bar, Strength in Every Story. Thanks so much for listening. We're so happy to have you as a member of our community. We have a passion for weightlifting, but we also have an insatiable curiosity about everyone's story. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at _2_thebar. And be sure to hit the website at 2-thebar.com. See you next time on To The Bar. And remember, there's strength in every story.